United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mrs. Hoskins, if you could please take roll. Carter, here. Powell.
Here.
Hayes. Here. All righty. Alan, take her away.
First thing on the agenda is the traffic signals and intersection improvements, with the first topic under there being the safety and capacity study. I did send that out last week for you guys to take a look at ahead of time. The purpose of this is to evaluate we have 7 of the major intersections, pretty much going down Broad, and then Havens Corners at Taylor and Havens Corners at Summit. We will rate them all with regard to safety and capacity, rank them for priority for improvement. There's also a retiming factor of this, where the signals that we aren't retiming as part of the Broad Street corridor plan, we will retime the rest of these to coordinate, not directly coordinate, it's not all tied together, but at least to mesh with, I guess is a better term, with the rest of the signals in that corridor. And then we'll get recommendations for improvement for the top 5 intersections needing improvement along there. We did budget $50,000 in this year's budget for this study. Of course, as you saw in the proposal, the study came in at just under $50,000. We feel like we are getting a pretty good deal with this. They actually increased the scope a little bit by adding the signal retiming in. We hadn't specifically planned for that, but it was recommended just to help improve safety. Having the proper timing on those should help with that. And then we got a little bit of savings by coordinating this along with the timing study on the rest of Broad Street, because we were able to pair counts. We got to do traffic counts at all of these intersections, so pairing those two together gave us a little bit of economy of scale.
Okay.
The schedule on this would be to do the study this year, hopefully design and acquire right-of-way and apply for funding next year, and then design the top priority improvement in, construct the top priority improvement in 2021. Happy to answer any questions on that.
I'm sorry, I'm suffering from spring break lag. I'm trying to get myself back together. So, we would approve it this year. The engineering would be next year,
Engineering will be next year, correct?
and then construction in 2021.
Correct. Another thing that this could help us with, we've talked a little bit, at least with different consultants, about funding opportunities. On Broad Street, we haven't really gone too far with that, but this kind of study can help set us up for potentially MORPC and ODOT funding, safety funding, to expand Broad Street. Obviously, that'd be a large project and take several years and probably several phases, but this is kind of the first step towards looking at getting that kind of funding.
That's perfect. So when something like that is in our CIP, that's when those things start to get recognized. So it's our first step into really getting our intersections addressed in the city.
Correct.
It is, and even with OPWC, if you have plans designed, you get additional points. You know, there are different criteria that you can get points for. So having the study, knowing what we need to do, having some design done will help us score with OPWC funding as well.
And just for the sake of knowing this now, how did we come about picking this group to do this study?
So we do have a statement of qualifications from this consultant on file. It is less than $50,000, so we did direct select. We did not do a specific RFQ, but we did get the qualifications from this consultant.
Okay.
Well, they're also doing the other signal timing, and we're getting a cost reduction for the traffic counts, because they're gonna do both at the same time, so it's helping with the economy of scale.
Beautiful. Okay. So, kind of just give me a timeline if you could, if we can get the resolution approved this evening, the signal retiming, at what point do you think that would take place? Cause I know that's something we were trying to get done sooner rather than later.
So we've got to do the counts for all of it, and we would have those scheduled in April. We need to do it while school is in session, so we'll try and get it fit in April. If not, it would happen in May. And then once we get that, they've got to go back and optimize that, run it through some design software. And then, I don't want to say too fast, but definitely by the end of summer, I think by next school year, we would definitely have our timings redone.
Okay.
Hopefully sooner than that, but I would say that by then, that should not be an issue to have it done before next school year.
Do you guys have any questions about this specifically? Now, it's on for a resolution this evening, but, so you don't necessarily need anything from the street committee to, a recommendation, or just simply for us when we give our report to say the street committee reviewed it and they're on board?
Well, it is certainly, at the pleasure of the committee, if they wanna make a recommendation. I do like getting recommendations from committees, prior to it going to all of council, so if the committee does not mind and feel comfortable with this and feels like they can recommend it, I would appreciate getting a recommendation to council for approval of the contract this evening. That is,
Okay, 027.
yeah.
Correct.
So I would entertain a motion for street committee recommendation of approval for the contract with the GPD group for our, traffic intersection safety and capacity study.
So moved.
Carter,
Yes,
Howe,
Yes.
Hayes,
yes. Excellent. This is exciting. I'm ready to get this done.
Likewise, yes. Great.
All righty.
Quick update on the time, I guess there's really not much to say on the timing plan. The update is we'll get the traffic counts scheduled, provided this resolution goes through tonight, and get all that done together and hopefully get them out there as soon as we can.
Beautiful. I'm actually curious too to see the traffic counts at each of those
Yeah.
intersections.
I am so.
To what it feels like you're sitting through, to what it actually is or is not, you know what I mean?
I think when we had the, speed trailer up on Havens Corner, I was floored by the number of cars, so
Yeah.
I think we're gonna see a similar result with these intersections.
I have to tell you, I was excited that you guys got to see those numbers, cause you know, obviously, I get stuck in that
every day.
hot mess on a regular, so it was nice to have it verified, not that, you know, I'm just getting old and cranky, so.
Never.
And road rage, no, not me. Alrighty. The retention detention for Glenbrook.
So, of course, we got 2 inches of rain Saturday night, so this did go into the roadway again over the weekend. We did take a kind of a preemptive step, kind of a test step, if you will, where we blocked about half of the pipe coming out of the first retention basin, so it slowed the water down getting to the second retention basin, and we believe that did help. That kind of helps justify that we do need the outlet structure like we're proposing would help with that flooding. So by blocking half that pipe, we slowed it down, getting to the second one, which prevented it, or at least slowed it down from getting in the road and was less flooding in the road.
Can I just ask where the location was this on this?
This is in Glenbrook subdivision, crossing Monarch Drive, right there, Citizens Park.
Yes, Citizens Park.
Yep.
Do you know if there was any, property damage?
Not that I've heard, I haven't heard
Okay.
anything other than, Jason told me this morning, it was in the road, but I don't think it got much out of the road, if it did get out of the road. And that falls again, I did provide another copy of the budget carryover surplus and needs. That's where we didn't plan for this in the budget, and did include a small amount, if we do supplemental to help fund the installation of that retention, or that outlet structure in that retention basin.
And I feel like we need to do that. What are you thinking that we would have to pay for that? I mean, or do we need somebody to kind of look at it and give us an estimate before, or?
So Between me and Hall on the general engineering, we can come up with a pretty simple spec sheet to provide to a contractor. And I think for less than $10,000, we can get that installed.
Beautiful, okay. Do you guys have any questions about that one in particular? Yeah, I would say let's move that one as quickly as we can.
Okay.
Only, I don't like the, how it impacts the roadway and the, cars on the street or whatever.
Yes.
So if we have repeated property damage, even though is some mitigation of somebody's, own damages, but still, I'd rather not have that fight.
Indeed.
Okay. And I feel a little bad because I just told our friend that I wasn't certain that, we would have a lot of discussion about Oak Meadow, but, Miss Brenda was in the hallway a few minutes ago, so.
I don't think there's a lot,
Okay.
just an update on bid schedule.
Okay,
Yeah, so I did provide the most recent and presumably final cost estimate. We were pretty comfortable. I did a plan review here last week, spent about 2 hours trying to remember and make sure that we did include everything that we thought needed included. I think the plans look great. And I think this is pretty close to the final number. Hopefully we get some bids that are in that realm. We are putting it out to bid this week, so Thursday will be the first advertisement, and we're planning to open April 30th, and hoping to get that turned around to get a recommendation to approve that contract and get a resolution to award it at the first meeting in May if we can turn it around that quickly. And that's really about it on Oak Meadow Drive. We did have to go on the roadway, unfortunately, but that'll keep the project moving forward. Cost a little bit more, but we're pretty comfortable with the design of it.
If we were gonna try to do it in the right of way as we looked at, remind us, the gas company would have had to relocate, because it snakes down through.
Correct. The gas line that's in there is, it varies in location as it goes down the right of way there, so we would have to have had them relocate their line, which, the rate they moved probably would have taken a couple months, which would have made it very difficult to get the project done this year.
oh,
Any questions on Oak Meadow?
nope,
Okay, quick update on the safe travel plan. That is currently out to bid. We'll be opening bids April 9th, so next Thursday. And then we'll hopefully, we'll try and get that recommendation to award by the second meeting in April. If we can turn that around, we'll get some good bids. It's a reminder on that one again with the supplemental. Of course, the budget for phase 1 that was in for last year lapsed, and that is part of the potential supplemental as well. And that's all I have on that project, unless there's any questions.
no.
The 2019 ramp, that is also out to bid with the same schedule as the safe travel plan. I guess a reminder on the budget on that one, we had $650,000 in the original 2019 budget. We basically planned for it to be a little heavy, and as designed, it's about $705,000. And then the alternate bids add up to about $250,000. The alternate bids are, of course, Old Maids Lane and Highland Court, which is in pretty bad shape. So ideally, in my mind at least, we would be able to do those alternates as well, provided we get some good bids, and have a supplemental of roughly $300,000. We'll revise that once we actually see bid numbers. And that's all I have for that one, unless there's any questions.
No, this is, by the time we get through the end of this year, I mean, like, we're gonna have new city going on around here. This is good stuff. Alright.
A lot of projects.
Yes, good stuff. It's, when you see something working for years, it's nice to, when you finally get to see it come to fruition, because, it's a slow moving wheel, so.
Yeah, starting to get some of these old projects completed is a very nice thing.
Okay.
Main Street Phase 2, there was a slight delay out there. The water line was not marked correctly, so we're scrambling to get information on where it actually is to get that to the sewer district so that they can relocate their water line where necessary and hopefully not delay us too much. We are going to get that information to them, and they do understand that they will need to move that water line out of our way. we met with them last week and it seemed to go well. And they'll move as quickly as they can to do that. Hopefully that doesn't delay our schedule. We'd originally planned to be done by July 1st. It might push it back a little bit. But so far that project is tracking pretty close to on budget. ODOT hasn't given me exact numbers. He just said, yeah, it's pretty close. So he felt pretty confident about that. And they have been having issues with traffic, so I did mention to the police department if they could help out with keeping people out of there ideally, especially in the morning and the afternoon. They've gotten a lot of traffic and people speeding down through there. So Mr. Bowles said he would try and get some presence up there to help us out.
I was actually gonna say something about that. I've seen a lot of people going around and going anyhow. So I've had a few angry individuals about it being blocked off again. And I'm like, well, do you wanna drive through the craters or do you wanna get it fixed? I mean, you have to give them the opportunity to fix it.
Right.
I'm not sure if this afternoon's count, but 9 cars were stopped this morning and told politely that the road is closed.
Yes.
Good, very good,
Yep.
okay. Because I saw some on my way here, people going around it, so I just kept saying, maybe they live down there. Yeah, but you know,
There are a few.
just maybe two, right?
Thanks for that update, Mayor. That's helpful.
And these are actually people that, I mean, we're letting locals through, obviously, we're just educating the rest of them.
Yes, great. Any other questions on MINC 2 then?
Nope.
MINC 3, MINC 3 is finally done. We got the final pay application here the other day. It turned out kind of interesting, so we'd allotted an additional $30,000 in 2016 for pavement to resurface the whole thing instead of just the widening, which was definitely a good thing. And then last year we allotted another $70,000 because of price increases and some other things that came up. The good news is we actually only needed the $30,000 and the additional $70,000 wasn't needed. The reasoning for that, there's about 165 line items on this, and there was about an 21 change orders, which was $83,000 in change orders. So we kind of erred on the high side. The good news is we didn't need that additional $70,000, and I think that is reflected at $60,000 on my on the carryover surplus. So I was off by a little bit, but good news, there is some savings beyond what we expected there to be, I guess.
Beautiful.
The only thing left on that, there is some striping on that northeast corner where they had to put more pavement where everything, the house. We'll pull that line up and put a new line that's further back as part of the ramp this year, just to get that done separately, wrap this project up as far as pay applications and costs and such.
You guys have any questions about it?
That's exciting, just to have it so close.
Yeah, to see it.
Almost the face, you're like,
That one,
It's on paper.
That one predates me, so
You
that
look-
one,
you look-
excites me.
yeah.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. That mess, I'm glad to see that go.
Makes
I think it turned out
All
really
of
well,
us.
too.
all of us in the room.
Yeah, it did turn
Only
out
LA,
really well. I mean,
There's
There's a
it's-
couple of those.
the improvement of the track is,
No doubt.
it's wonderful. I mean, it's so much safer to go through that area. And
Nice.
you really used to, it was like a wing and a prayer, like, all right, I guess I'll go now. You don't know who's coming over that track, so.
That's great.
Yeah, the only ones that aren't happy are the Eagle Knievel's in town.
They can always go to Columbia Road.
We haven't got to that.
awkward laugh.
No, not yet.
Yeah. Let's
Okay.
not say that stuff in public.
Taylor Road Drainage Project, update on this one. So we had originally planned for $15,000 for engineering this year for a project to replace the storm lines that are on Taylor Road, running from Berry Road to the south, the south for roughly 800 feet. And working with the consultant, they recommended a study so that we could make sure we understood the drainage area and make sure we were doing it appropriately. They gave us a proposal for the study, which was almost as much as we had planned for engineering. Looking at the alternatives that we had discussed, two of them were very unlikely. One of them was to put in a retention basin. which we would have to buy property for, provided somebody wanted to sell it, and that, so it wasn't very likely. Another one was to, instead of replacing the storm on both sides of the road, to just do one side of the road with the larger pipe. However, that we don't have the depths really to do that, and so we, after getting our proposal, we said, no, this isn't what we wanna do, let's just redesign it on both sides. After looking at that a little bit more, the Community Water and Sewer District put water line on the west side of the road and sanitary sewer on the east side of the road. And after talking with some of the guys in the department who've been here for a while, they think that that's potentially part of the reason that we're having issues, and that their lines kind of conflict with where our lines are. So a simple replacement project isn't as simple as I had originally believed it to be. So we did start looking at design. I'm expecting to get a proposal here in the near future. However, it's probably not gonna be the 15,000, it's probably gonna be closer to 30 to 40,000, because the construction project, as I had originally budget for next year at 150,000, is probably gonna be closer to 250,000, just because of all the conflicts with the water, the sewer, and I guess there's a gas line out there as well. So we're gonna have to get a little creative to make that work. So it's unfortunate that it's a little bit more than we had hoped for it to be, but we'll come back to the next group committee after I get the proposal. And I might also look at another consultant to get another proposal to see if they're seeing the same thing. This was one where we did a direct select as well, thinking it was a fairly simple project, but maybe we'll get a second opinion on the cost proposal for this one.
So I just, and trying to understand the way it works with the water and sewer district. So with their water and sewer lines along the sides, will it interrupt their stuff in any way that there would be repairs or upgrades or anything that would be required on their side?
There shouldn't be. We think we can design around theirs, but it would, from what I have heard at least, when they went through, and I have no idea even when that was, I think it's been several years ago, that they didn't pay much attention maybe to what we had in the ground, and kind of ran over some stuff, or didn't replace it with the same quality pipe. And when you look at their manholes with relation to where we believe our storm sewer to be, we're trying to figure out how they actually both work together, and that's probably part of our problem, is that the storm sewer kind of got sacrificed as part of it.
I see. So are we in communication with them about that and the potential? And
We have not been thus far. Obviously, that was 7 years ago, so I don't know that we can get them to do anything different at this point, other than let them know that they're there, and there could be some working together on that.
yeah, and because I'm always making such a fuss at their poor communication and the handling of situations, I would like for us to be proactive when it comes to making sure that they're aware that, that there might be some, hopefully not, but there's always the potential for some damage or things that have to be repaired. And
Yes.
so make sure we're in front of it just on the communication side of things. I hate that we have something that has to directly conflict with their infrastructure down there, so,
Yes,
okay.
we will be sure to do that.
So those, we expect that, we'll see that in the next year's budget talks for that additional money, or?
So if we want to do the engineering this year, we would try and figure that within this year's budget for the engineering, which I do not believe I included anything in the potential supplemental needs for that. We might need to revisit that after we see what the actual numbers are, to see if we
Okay.
need that.
Yeah, let's keep a close eye on it, that way we can make sure that, we don't plan to do something else and then need to move the money around and get somebody's hopes up, and then their stuff doesn't get done, so.
Right.
Okay. You guys have any other questions on that one?
And then the final thing that I have.
Did you touch on Taylor Road path?
Oh, nope, sorry, I skipped over that, didn't I? The Taylor Road path, thank you, scheduled to recommence in early May. They've gotta wait for the plants to open back up, because they need to get that surface course of asphalt on before they can really do anything else. So they like I said, early part of May, and there's an estimated 45 days of work remaining, so hopefully they'll be able to finish up mid-June.
Okay. My 8-year-old calls it my path. Look, people are on mom's path. Look, there's people on mom. Look at the people riding their bikes on mom's path. Mom, did they pay you for that path?
That's awesome. It's a lasting legacy.
Yes, dear. Sure they did. It's not my path. What do you mean it's not your path? So, yeah, he believes that belongs to me, so.
Right, wrong, or indifferent.
So I'll wait for the check. That path belongs,
I'm sure it's in the mail.
so. Just don't cash it
Hopefully
yet,
you're
right?
patient.
Okay, development impact fees, what's that one?
So, as part of there's been a little bit of discussion with the developments and what should happen for impact fees for traffic and the likes. Obviously, they're adding traffic out this way and at intersections, which, because they're definitely adding traffic and making issues that we maybe already have worse. So we started looking at what can we do as far as them footing the bill for some of the improvements, either in that area or around town that they're affected by the increased development. So we had a kickoff meeting with Hall, Planning and Zoning Director, and myself 2 weeks ago, kind of trying to get ideas, brainstorm a little bit about how we could do this. We did look around, and Pickerington has impact fees. Theirs are very interesting, where they have recreational facilities, the police department, public service. I think there's another column in there as well. And they have about $4,000 per house. So 200 houses, that's $800,000. So that's pretty high and more than what we had expected or anticipated us doing. So Mr. Fulton was going to reach out to Pickerington and see how they came up with that. And he was also going to reach out to Canal Winchester to see how they do theirs, because evidently they have some impact fees as well. Joe's going to do a little bit of reverse engineering, or excuse me, Hall, if you're saying Joe's, going to do a little reverse engineering to see how that would work out for us, or kind of what our number we think that
Yeah.
might be. And then for us, we were thinking we would try for public service for streets and such, as well as the police department. Obviously, we go from the same pot of money anyway, so if we could factor that in there as well, that would certainly be helpful. So we're actually planning to meet again this Wednesday as a follow-up. I did talk with Mr. Bowles a little bit to see what their needs are, and we're going to follow up with them, so to have a conversation about that. And then we'll meet with those guys again this week. Here in a couple more weeks, once we have some more information, we'll loop in Mr. King and Mr. Nicholson to get their takes on how we can do this and set it up. We'll vet that out administratively and then take it before both the street committee and the development committee as soon as we get that together, which we're trying to move it forward as fast as we can.
That's great. And when you bring that, it would be, if you could give us some examples of the other municipalities and how they break that down and exactly what they charge, what they consider for those fees.
Okay?
I mean, because we're talking, streets and police, but there may be other things that we could consider in there
Okay.
for that. So I would be interested to see how theirs is set up and how they came about it, side by side, a couple of examples, so as we talk about ours,
Yes.
make sure that, if we're gonna go down that path and do it, that we do it right, and we get the most out of it that we can.
Absolutely.
Because I think that is a fabulous idea. So, perfect.
And unless there's any question on that, that is all that I had specifically.
Was there any other, street committee business?
Yeah, well, the pedestrian signs, will we be replacing those on Main Street? Ones
Yes.
that keep getting knocked over?
Yes. We took them out for the winter
That's
because
what I
of
thought.
plowing. Yes, we will get those back up. I'll make
The
sure
only
to-
reason why I ask is because my two youngest are old enough to go to the coffee shop on their that didn't come out right, on their own. And so I see it a lot, like, people don't stop
Okay.
for pedestrians at all on Main Street.
No, they don't.
And so, one, want my kids to be able to like travel through town, and so I think that would help. But, I know that I've had a lot of people comment to me about no one stops for pedestrians, and I know that there is some type of a, like a violation, or is that a law, is there a law that
is.
goes with
Yeah,
pedestrians?
It is, your
Like,
pedestrians have the right of
People whip right by it, and then,
They have a right of
so
way.
Claire tried to cross the other day, and one lane stops, and the other lane won't stop. And then, you know, that's,
She doesn't know where to go.
Stuck.
no, and like, so that's not my only reason, but that's one of the things that's like, anything will help. But I know that on Main Street that,
Yeah.
and they're flying down.
And we were waiting until plowing season was over, so we weren't just
Okay, that
destroying
makes
them.
sense.
I think we're pretty much there now, hopefully we're there. So we'll get those
All right,
reinstalled
I
here
appreciate
in
that.
very near future.
Thank you.
Speaking of signs, that reminds me, at one point I told you that the sign at Faith Ann and Taylor was on the ground, like, just the top part of the sign, not the pole, and now,
Oh.
that was a while back when we had a lot of snow and it was a heavy wind, and now it's just gone all together. So I don't know if it came down and then got plowed up, or, I don't know.
I think we picked that up, but I will.
Yeah, so
verify.
there's not one there at
It's
all.
hanging
Okay, so
right
these are
now.
back up.
Which was brought to my attention because when we have a lot of, a rotation of, substitute bus drivers who pass it and then wanna back up on Taylor, and that's not okay. So, if we could take a look, I'd appreciate
Okay,
it.
will do.
All right, anything else?
No.
Motion to adjourn?
Carter,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Hayes,
Yes.
What was the great idea that I missed?
Having a party for you.
I doubt that.
You know that I'm just a plethora.